Hey friends, welcome back to Bible Fun with the Duns. I don't know what it is, but when we sit down to film, our dog thinks he's supposed to be on this.
He runs up. We sit here. And it doesn't matter who's doing it. He'll run up and he'll like put his arms up on the person who's sitting on the side and just like, hey, I'm here. Let's do this.
Like he's about to tell about.
And I'm pretty sure he has not read the passage for today. Little preparation done by the dog.
True that.
Okay.
So today we are in Job chapter 32, and we meet another person. And evidently this person has been around this whole time, but we have not heard their name until this chapter.
That's right.
And his name is Elihu, and that's what I'm saying it is. And Elihu has been here, and he's been quiet because he's the youngest one. And he's just been listening to everyone. He's like, okay, everyone's older. They are more knowledgeable. They have all the wisdom. I'm going to sit here quietly out of respect. I think that's good character in this guy. Yep. And I want to hear what they say as they struggle and wrestle and grapple with what Job is going through. But now that he's given them 31 chapters to share their part, he's like, okay, it's my turn to step in. And he's annoyed. As he steps in, he is annoyed with Job because he thinks Job has spent more time defending himself than he has defending God. And he's annoyed with the friends because the friends have no proof, nothing to justify how they're angry, and they're accusing Job of all of these things. But most of all, and my takeaway, comes from what Elihu has learned from just sitting there quietly and listening. And I think there's a little lesson there. If we're quiet, we can learn things. We can pick things up just by being observers. And what he has found is the people that he thought were wise because they're old aren't quite as wise as he thought they were. Yeah. He's young, he's been quiet, he's let them talk, he's observed them, and he's kind of let down. And what he has realized is, hey, just because you're old doesn't mean you're wise. And he learns that wisdom is not something that is a gift of being aged, but wisdom comes from God.
That's right. So the hard lesson here is to look up and realize that just because people grow old doesn't mean that they've actually grown up. Just because they've had experiences doesn't necessarily mean those experiences have transitioned into wisdom. So Elihu has waited along on this whole thing, and he's listened to all speeches on both sides, and he's found fault with both. Now, I do want to make a couple of just casual comments about him because I think these are important. Number one is that when we get to the end of the story, God circles back and he points at Job's friends, and God has some pretty sharp words for Job's friends, except for Elihu. So, I don't know why, because Elihu does not come across really well in all of this. And yes, he did wait his turn, but just because you create a bomb that has a long fuse, just because it takes that fuse a long time to burn, it will eventually explode, as Elihu does. So it doesn't make it less dangerous, it just makes it longer until it blows up.
That sounds like a spoiler.
Yeah, and I think that's what's happening with Elihu here. The other side of Elihu is he's got a lot of insight, but he comes off as a lot of like pride in how he says it. So he's very angry in what he says. You can notice in even the first 4 verses. Verse 2 says, then the wrath of Elihu. Then it says that his wrath was aroused. In verse 3 it says his wrath was aroused. In verse 4 it says his wrath was aroused. Like he's angry. I wrote in the margins of my Bible, I was just kind of leaving a little note for me, and I said it like here. I said, Dusty, be careful that when you start with words that are angry, be careful when they start with the primary emotion of anger. So if I'm going to talk and my primary motivation is anger and I've got to say what I got to say because I'm angry, that never goes well. So hold your horses a little bit. Also, historically, Aristotle said, it's easy to fly into a passion. Anybody can do that. But to be angry with the right person to the right extent at the right time with the right object and in the right way, that's not easy, and not everybody can do it. And so when I'm reading Elihu, he believes he's got the qualifications to like teach all of these guys. He's got 5 qualifications. He says the Spirit of God is in him. He's waited his turn. He's had different and better arguments that he's about to give. He's had a lot to say, and he is going to be impartial and unflattering and just tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The problem was, like in verse 17, he says, I will answer my part, and I will declare my opinions, and for I am full of words. Well, full of words doesn't mean full of truth or wisdom or understanding. Elihu believed that he had a mandate to say what he had to say because he just wanted to let everything be known. Listen, what this is saying, like in verse 10, he says, I will declare my opinion. Verse 17, he says, I will declare my opinion. Some people just need to be heard. Mm-hmm. Have you ever known somebody that just, they had to say something, even if they were saying exactly what everybody else was saying, they just had to be heard. If that's you or if that's me, we better be sure we know what we're talking about if we have to be heard. Why? Because a fool is thought wise if kept silent. I think that in verse 21, he says, let me not, I pray, show partiality to anyone. Let me not flatter any man. So Elihu may have wanted to be impartial, but that by no means means that he was going to be neutral. He was way too angry to be neutral. He was coming in hot at everybody. And so when we read this, I think what we have to recognize is, you know what? Everybody can have an opinion. Be careful how you express it. Be careful what you say. Be careful how you say it. And be careful what motivates what you say. Listen, the tongue is the most dangerous muscle in the mouth, muscle in the life to control. If you can control this, you can control a lot. And so just know that as you read this, just say, sometimes being young means having to be extra cautious. And sometimes being old means you have a higher level of responsibility. With experience should come responsibility. So whatever age we are, let's seek to honor God. All right, so let's listen, because God doesn't get him in trouble, so it may mean he's not all wrong. All right, we'll keep reading and we'll check with you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.